Okay. So, were you in Stalag 17 during D-Day?
Mm-hmm.
Were you hearing about what was going on?
Yeah, I had my radio.
You were listening to American stations? English stations?
BBC.
BBC? So, was it like on the news the day of the invasion what was going on, or was it like a day later? Or?
We had a news committee, they called it, and they designate one guy to get the news together, and he'd go from barracks to barracks.
Like a town crier?
Town crier. Get up on a chair and give us the news as they got it. It might be propaganda, it might not.
Yeah, you didn't know.
It worked pretty good.
So, how long after D-Day would you say that they started moving you out of Stalag 17?
It was over a year, I guess. D-Day was in May, wasn't it?
Well, what month were you shot down?
I was shot down in April. Either the 8th or the 11th, I'm not sure.
So,
And I don't know, seems like I was a prisoner of war quite a while before they had D-Day. But it took the Americans quite a while before they ever got to us. So I don't know.
So it was a long time. America was progressing in the war, winning, and they finally decided to march you out of Stalag 17.
Mm-hmm. Because the Russians was right at our back door, and they didn't want to be captured by the Russians. The guards didn't, so they marched us towards the Americans.
So they'd march all of you,
All of us that could.
I mean, the French and the English and the Americans, and what they do? They marched the Russians with you. They left them.
They couldn't. They couldn't have marched. They were
Too sick.
Mm-hmm.
So did some of the German guards stay behind with them?
No, they just turned loose. I don't think anybody stayed behind.
No. So.
Yeah, some of the Americans did, because the Americans that couldn't march.
Yeah.
Called them repats.
Called what? Repatriation.
Mm-hmm. And then when the war was over, they brought trucks in. The Americans brought trucks in and got them out. And I think the way they talked, they almost had a war getting them away from the Russians. They just had to tell the Russians to go to hell, and they was loading them.
So the Russians had taken over the camp and more or less taken American prisoners, the ones that couldn't leave Stalag 17.
They wouldn't take them back to Russia.
But was it our military that went back in to get them and told them, no, we're taking our guys home?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the Russians were advancing, so they marched you away from the Russians advancing.
Mm-hmm.
I think I read there's like 4,000. At least 4,000 that they're marching away from the Russian front.
Mm-hmm. See, they rushed more than our camp. They marched more than our camp away from the Russians. They had a couple of camps up on the Baltic that the Russians was getting close to. They marched them too.
So did you guys end up combining and marching together? Other camps?
No.
But, okay. But it wasn't just your camp that got marched away from the front?
Mm-mm.
Did you guys ever meet somewhere, or they got liberated somewhere else? And
They got liberated. Well, the place we went was in France. They had camps set up. The camp I went to, they named them after cigarettes. Camp Lucky Strike and Camp Chesterfield and
Camel?
yeah, all different camps.
Named
I went to Lucky Strike.
Camp Lucky. Now, Camp Lucky Strike was in France.
Mm-hmm.
They marched you all the way from.
No, they marched us up to Brownell
Brownell.
on the river. We were right on the bank of the river, and they had springs coming out. That's where we got our water. We'd go down to the banks of the, I think it's Inns River, I'm not sure. It is a big river. And we'd get on everything where the water was coming out of the bank, take our shower. If you was brave enough, there's snow on the ground.
Now, so they marched you up to there.